So since Broadsteps has been open, we've responded to 155 calls for service there. So we will get calls from the Georgetown High School, dealing with Broadsteps students that attend Georgetown High School. We get calls from Broadsteps from staff. We get calls from convenience stores. So these calls for service could originate from anywhere within the city of Georgetown, but they tie back to Broadsteps.
And the runaway, you mentioned runaways. Tell us about that.
So I can tell you about a runaway that I happened upon riding around the city. A young man sitting underneath a tree one afternoon, just looked out of place, so I stopped. He told me that he had run away from Broadsteps because he was being harassed and beaten and attacked by other kids there, and that he wasn't going back. And so ended up, to make a long story short with him, I ended up placing him in emergency protective custody because why am I going to take a young man back to a facility and put him back in the same conditions where DSS is taking him out of the house, his home to begin with, some sort of issue like that.
Do you recall an incident with a Georgetown High School student?
I do.
Tell us about that.
And I don't remember the staff member's name, but we were called around to the middle school by one of the faculty members there about a Broadsteps staff member coming onto the campus. They were having a problem. They were having some sort of problem with one of the Broadsteps kids. She went onto the campus, ends up assaulting him there by getting him in a chokehold, which is on camera. So we, the officers that worked that case ended up charging her appropriately for whatever that offense was. For example, we had a call there this past Friday night. Kid was attacked in the room somewhere inside Broadsteps by two other kids. The staff did not take him to the hospital that night. It's my understanding he was taken the next morning to the hospital. He was identified to have a broken nose and a black eye. When my staff interviewed the lady about why he wasn't taken the night before, she said, I was here by myself, I couldn't leave.
I do. So basically what happened, someone called 911, staff called 911. They had an incident where I guess a juvenile from Broadsteps got into an altercation with an employee, and the employee was in the background saying that I'm going to kill him.
Is that an isolated incident, Sergeant?
That is not an isolated incident. So I know we're working one case where a juvenile's arm, shoulder got dislocated, arm got broken. This was a year ago or so. It's being tied. The reason it's still active is because it's got the solicitor's office. The solicitor's office is waiting on the state medical examiner to look at it because some issues with the medical condition that the child has. The child got injured that night. Hospital called the next day when the child was at the hospital. The hospital called and reported it to us.
Each time that you reached out to us, you were bringing up very specific issues or occurrences. Is that right?
I never reached out to Broadsteps.
You did. It was people who work for you?
My staff.
And they told you they weren't getting anywhere?
Correct.
Do you believe as police chief, if you had picked up the phone call, they might have paid better attention?
No.
And I'll tell you about the kinds of kids we treat. Young lady, saw her standing in a room in one of our facilities. She, I found out, had a 68 or 69 IQ. And she was just staring into space. That's all she was doing. Her mother decided while she was pregnant with her that she would drink and she would do drugs, and this young girl has been consigned to a life of that kind of experience. Forever. Nothing will ever change that. But then you take the other young girl who was almost within earshot of her at the time, but I already knew about her. She was 10 years old. She had been raped more times than you can count. You can't even begin to count the number of times, according to her caseworker, that she had been raped. And she came to our facility to make clear what we're talking about when we talk about improvement. And Mayor, I think that's a fair question. There's no question about that. But when we're talking about improvement that we have shown, because we are doing some very serious things that I think the police chief would have liked to have seen a long time ago. But we're asking, because we think we can be a good corporate citizen. I've got letters. I'll make sure that you have them. One from the pastor who works with us, one from DSS. It's a strong letter, folks. It's a strong letter. And I've got a letter from Tyree Stevens. We have a lot of Tyrees. We don't want to be a burden on the community. We want to be a partner with the community, and that's what we're asking.
There were meetings over the last 22 months. There was a big Zoom meeting, another in-person meeting. Nothing changed until the business license was revoked and they can no longer do business in the city. I also heard a little bit of what I think council heard, which is we've fallen short because the police didn't do something right. That maybe the police department fell short. The police department hasn't worked with us. So I did hear a little bit of that, and I just want to submit to mayor and council that it is the police department's job and duty to protect our citizens, whether it's the children in that facility, their staff, or us as a whole. But it is not as far as that goal, I think that Ms. Mason testified to, the goal that we need help from the police. The police are here to help, but it is not their duty to make their business successful in the care of those children.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we deny the renewal of the business license to the petitioner based on the fact that they are operating a nuisance.
I second.
We have a motion, second, Mr. Clements. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Opposed? Did I get yours?
You said deny, right?
To deny the business license. So can we have a denial of the business license, raised hands?
Deny.
Yes, sir.
Deny, right?
Yes, sir. Deny.
No,
Deny the appeal. 6-1. Mr. Milton.
Thank you.
Thank you.